Yes. All right. So hello and good evening, good afternoon to all. I'm in Singapore. Oh, sorry, Daniela, you are unmuted. Okay, thank you very much. Again, good evening, good afternoon to all. I'm in Singapore, so it's 2 a.m., so it's a very good morning for me. We encourage you to introduce yourselves in the chat with your name and organization, and remind all to save all your questions for our speakers after they've all spoken, so we can give them enough time to share on their topic. Yes, today's meeting is centered around data reuse and non-governmental use cases. As we know, not all data comes from the government. A significant and growing portion of the data we rely on, whether in research, policymaking, humanitarian work, journalism, or humanities, is generated by non-governmental actors. These include NGOs, private companies, citizen scientists, cultural institutions, and grassroots collectives. Our speakers come from a variety of such contexts. Non-governmental data can fill gaps left by official statistics, offering more localized insights and amplifying underrepresented voices, which is crucial to participatory knowledge making. But reusing this data also comes with the usual challenges. Unlike government data, which often follows standardized formats and clear governance models, though, as everyone working in the open data space knows, this is not always the case, non-governmental data can also vary widely in how it's collected, documented, and shared. Today's discussion invites us to explore the tensions and possibilities of data reuse in non-governmental contexts. What roles do academia, civil society, and policy institutions play in supporting responsible data reuse? How can we unlock the value of data created by these actors while addressing issues of trust, ethics, and equity? As always, we hope that you learn something new. Without further ado, let's hear from our first speaker, Dr. Barbara McGillivray, Lecturer in Digital Humanities and Cultural Computation, Department of Digital Humanities from King's College London.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me to give this talk. So I'm very excited to give my perspective from leading the Journal of Open Humanities data and talk about open data and data reuse in the humanities. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you all see my slides full screen? Perfect. Great. So let's start from the basics. What is humanities data? Well, data in the humanities comes.
Sorry, Barbara, sorry to interrupt you, but we can't see your full screen.
Okay, that's interesting. So let me try again. Stop share and share. And I'll do this. See.
Put it in presentation mode.
Just yeah, because I was sharing desktop. If I share my desktop, can you see my slides now?
Yeah,
okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. So yeah, so humanities data comes in all kinds of shapes and forms. It can be a book, it can be corpus of text, it can be a dictionary, it can be maps, recordings, archives, collections, survey data, and what more. So often, even the term data is controversial among humanities researchers because they're not used to thinking about what they produce and work on a daily basis as data. So here is various examples of data, and of course, humanities data is nothing new. The humanities have been producing data for centuries, thinking about the ancient libraries. But what's new is that in the past few decades, we've we've started digitizing a lot of this data, and in fact also producing born digital materials. And this is all data that humanities researchers can access now at a scale that was impossible before, which has really changed the way we deal with data, both in terms of analysis, collection, but also preservation and ethical and copyright considerations in the humanities. So really what I focus on is open data, of course. So data that is findable, accessible, reusable, and openly freely available by anyone. Data, humanities data, it has its own complexities because it reflects the culture, language, memory, identity of our past and our present. And so all these complexities are factored in and play a role in the way we handle data in the humanities. So what's special about humanities data is that there's often a high level of manual curation. So work that goes into very carefully analyzing data that often comes from eras that are very far from our present. There's often an element of subjective and personal interpretation. That's what humanities research is very proud of. People can spend their whole career analyzing a single word or a single author or a single piece of work. And there's this importance of context, both in terms of when the data was collected and analyzed, but also the historical period in which the data was produced in the first place. It could be very, very ancient data, as in this example of a data set that talks about epigraphic material in the Italian peninsula in the first millennium BCE. So now I talked about data, but I am the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Open Humanities Data, which is a data journal. So what is a data journal? Well, data journals are journals, academic journals that publish papers about data sets. So this is a relatively recent phenomenon. The very first data journal started in the 50s of last century, but in the humanities, they have really started to appear quite late. Data papers sit in this interesting space, and they complement traditional research papers because they focus on the data set, and they really are part of this ecosystem of outputs and products that the research produces. So you may be collecting some data as part of maybe a survey or field work, and then you could write a paper about the data set, describing how the data set was created, all the methods and its specificities. And then you may write a research paper about the findings of your analysis. So the two things can really coexist. But this is a concept that has been quite recent in the humanities. So what are the key features of data papers? Well, they describe a data set as I mentioned. They tend to be open access. They always are, precisely because they are a new they can sort of new concept. They sort of usually go on open access first. And they focus on the creation process for the data, but also the reuse potential. And that's a very important topic for today, and one that is often overlooked. So there's a lot of emphasis in how much work went into creating the data, but equally, it's very important to articulate how others can reuse your data. So the Journal of Open Humanities Data is an open access peer-reviewed data journal published by Ubiquity Press. It was founded in 2015. and I became editor-in-chief in 2019. We published over 200 papers, and really it's a very dynamic journal that has been growing significantly recently, and its mission is to promote best practice in data sharing and curation in the humanities across all the different disciplines that make up the humanities. So we have a growing team of volunteers, 18 members, including myself, editors, copy editors, social media editors. We also have an editorial board of experts, so 12 experts. And our background is varied. We tend to be researchers in linguistics, classics, law. Also, we have people from sort of libraries. We are really all passionate about the mission of the journal. So we publish as a journal two types of papers, data papers, so straight descriptions of data sets with an articulation of their reuse potential, and slightly longer papers, which we call discussion papers, which gives more space to discuss issues around access, analysis, preservation of humanities data. So really, you may ask, why do we even need data papers? It's very important to deposit your data set in a repository, like Zenodo, for example, put it there available for others to use. So why do we need to write a paper about the data set? Well, the data paper provides that contextualization of the data set, which is often not present in the very short README file of a data set. It's peer reviewed, so it has this level of rigor, because experts, independent experts, have gone through the paper, have sort of reviewed it. And it gives academic credit to the person that wrote it. So it's an incentive to whoever created the data to also have a publication associated with it. As I said, the journal doesn't just publish papers. It aims at being a key part of a thriving community of scholars sharing humanities data. So a lot of what we do is around building and supporting that community. And we talk to humanists of various fields, linguists, historians, archaeologists, classicists, and more. We also talk with librarians, heritage professionals, and citizen science projects. So as I mentioned, JODE has grown significantly in the recent years, since 2019, 2020, and it's now running at about 40 to 50 papers per year. We have analyzed the distribution of these papers. So they cover a range of different disciplines within the humanities, and actually some of it, a few are also in the social sciences, with a sort of majority in the literary and cultural space, but also history, linguistics, and information science. I also done some analysis on the type of data sets that are described in our data papers and how it correlates with the size of the data set, the type of disciplines covered. So this is a visualization of the distribution. So we see some disciplines prefer larger data sets. For example, in bibliometrics, information science tends to have more extra large scale data sets, whereas literary and cultural studies sit more in the sort of small to medium side, but there is big variety. If we look at also the type of data, of course, we have majority of textual data set, but also visual, particularly in areas like heritage or ethnography and media studies, of course. We have some auditory, some multimodal, and some structured data sets, so like in the form of tables or databases. So there is really this richness that shows how much a journal like this is needed. So here's an example of a data paper that we published in a collection called Amplifying GLAM collections, scalable and inclusive data practices. It was really aimed at GLAM professionals and people working in the GLAM, so galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. And this is a specific case of a paper where the project aimed at transforming 2 million historical press photos from the Dutch National Archives into FAIR compliant data sets. So FAIR stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And the methods used to create this massive archive were mostly automated metadata extraction, enrichment, and linked data conversion. So what's interesting is here's an example of a photo from this archive that was created, and on the right you see the actual data, the sort of coding, and what's important is to show how the authors went into a lot of effort to really articulate how their data set could be reused. These images could be used for exhibitions, public education, or even training AIs on visual culture. And they'll help us study the bias in the press, the representation and cultural memory. So they really are a very rich source of data. So so far, I've talked about research projects, but really open data enables reuse in a variety of different contexts, from cultural preservation and storytelling to digital tools for education and advocacy, and resource sharing across borders and sectors. So really, that's where the potential for open data lies. And this is something really we want to spread the word about. Now, there are some challenges in terms of making open data work for all. There are barriers that we've noticed around time, cost, awareness, also copyright, ethics. Of course, open data is widely seen as good scholarly practice. It enables collaboration, validation, and reuse. But as in many humanities fields, it just isn't enough resourcing to accommodate a full pipeline of data creation, and sometimes there are cost implications as well. But there are solutions, there are incentives like mandating, funders mandating that the data from their project need to be open and published. We have, of course, community standards like the FAIR principles that I mentioned earlier, and we have our own policies in the Journal of Open Humanities Data, JODE, around discoverability of the data and peer reviewing the data as well. We did a little study on how data papers help the visibility of the data sets that they are associated with, and also the research paper that they are related to. Here's the reference to our full paper. But basically what we saw is that research papers that have an associated data paper tend to have higher citation counts, and also data sets that have an associated data paper tend to have a higher number of downloads and also views. So we see that really, writing a data paper helps the visibility of your data and also of your research. So I invite all of you to think, have you collected or curated cultural, linguistic, historical data in your work? Because Journal of Open Humanities Data welcomes data papers, not just from scholars, but also NGOs, community projects, cross-sector collaborations. And if you focus on your methods, reuse potential, it may be publishable as a data paper. And publishing a data paper makes your work more visible, citable, and reusable. So I really see this ecosystem of researchers, data sets, cultural institutions working together to make open data really the default and encourage data literacy, stewardship, and really having more partnerships and really ultimately sharing the data, and so the data can be used for better, for good purposes. And just a final note, we are celebrating our 10th anniversary on the 26th of September. It's called the Decade of Open Humanities Data. It's an online event, free to join, but you need to register. So here's the link and the QR code. We're going to have lightning talks, thematic dialogues, discussions. It's going to run for over 6 hours, so you can join the bits that suit your time zone. And I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I already have a few questions, but a reminder to those in the chat. Okay, I have to admit someone. Everyone here that to save your questions, and we will get to them after all the speakers have presented. I already, like, my mind is buzzing already. Thank you, Barbara. So up next, we have Macarena Zappe, Data and Technology Specialist at the Global Data Barometer. Maca, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I'll share my screen, so let me know when you can see my presentation. Can you already see it?
Yes, wonderful.
Well, perfect. Hi, everyone. Well, I already have been presented, so today I would like to talk about how data visualization can be a powerful tool for both reusing open data and also democratizing access to it. So I will share how we have been exploring this idea through our recent initiative in the Global Data Barometer that is called the Data Visualization Challenge, that is designed to open to new audiences our data and to new interpretations. So my talk today is going to be structured in these 4 points. I'm going to talk about the GDB and what we do here, and I will talk about visualizing for reuse purposes, and also the challenges in the database ecosystem, and finally talk about the database challenge per se. Okay, the Global Data Barometer is an assessment tool that measures how effectively countries are fostering healthy data ecosystems. So it examines the infrastructure and processes needed to ensure that data can serve for public good. Also, it provides a detailed view on how governance, availability, and also capabilities highlights the role of data in different countries. And we already have 2 editions, one in 2021 that cover 114 countries. And now we have a second edition that was launched on May, very recently, and that focused mainly on the Global South. So we are talking about the Caribbean, Latin America, and also Africa. Well, the GDB has regional partners that connect local knowledge to a global impact. And here we can find ILA, the local research institute that is for Africa, and the Caribbean Open Institute for the Caribbean. And then we also have thematic partners. And they have a very deep and technical expertise to design and evaluate each area of analysis that is covered in our study. So here we have OGP, TI, Open Contractor Partnership, LAN, Open Ownership, and GIFT. So the GDB provides a rating system based on international standards and includes evidence-backed indicators. The data is generated through a global network of local researchers, each one in their country, and is then verified by reviewers and then by the thematic experts that I have already mentioned. So all the results published are open and they are documented, and the idea is to encourage the transparency and also to encourage reuse. Well, the first edition, the data was mainly used by policy experts, civil society, and mainly by international organizations. And the main format was a written article. So for our second edition, we wanted to have a new goal. We wanted to expand our audience. We wanted the data to be used not only by specialists, but also by designers, journalists, and communicators, people who can bring data into public conversation in a more creative way. So Access doesn't automatically lead to impact, and just because data is open doesn't mean it is usable or reusable. And here is where it enters data visualization. Data visualization is the process of representing data with visual elements as charts, maps, and graphs, and makes complex information easier to understand and reveals trends, patterns, and outliers in the data. So database plays a key role in enabling reuse because it helps to turn abstract and complex data sets into something that is understandable and also engaging. This kind of reuse is essential because not only for researchers and policy experts, but also for journalists, activists, designers, educators who want to understand the data but may not have the technical expertise. Good visualization don't just simplify the data. It creates new entry points. They invite people to explore, to question, to even challenge the data. They are a form of democratic reuse. And most importantly, visualization moves us away from a model where only experts can understand the data toward a more collective intelligence can emerge, where new voices can use the same data in new creative ways. And also there are some challenges in the database world. I have been working with database my whole career. So what I could see is that it's very hard to build a portfolio using real world data. Many datasets are either too complex or maybe they are poorly documented. So it's super difficult to understand the values and the scores, etc. Also, secondly, creative work in data visualization often lacks of visibility, especially outside of these very technical communities. So even when people try to engage and to show their data visualizations, it is not very easy for them to participate. So that is why we launched the GDB Visualization Challenge, because we wanted to extend the reuse of our open data to new publics. We wanted to reach designers, developers, journalists, and researchers, and to bring an opportunity to them to be showcased and recognized mainly. We also wanted to see how the data could be interpreted through different lenses and with different formats. We wanted to know which different news stories we can learn from the same information. For this first edition of the Database Challenge, we had 87 registrations. That was a lot for us. We were expecting like 12 or 15 at least, but we had a lot of submissions. And then we have 24 submissions. And we brought together a jury of 6 experts to evaluate all the submissions. Well, and the participants came from different backgrounds. They are developers, they are designers, journalists, and also researchers. We are still in the judging phase of this database challenge, so I won't be sharing personal evaluation or opinions about the submissions, but I wanted to share with you some of the different formats that have been submitted. And the jury is independently reviewing each one of the entries using an evaluation framework. So I will share today some few examples simply to give you a sense of the diverse of formats and creative perspectives. And the examples shown here are not endorsements. They are only selected to illustrate the range of the different interpretations and formats that participants have used. So now I will share you some examples and I will remain silent because I cannot express any opinion. Well, I don't know if I was too fast, but as you can see, we receive a very wide range of formats. We had digital visualizations, we have events, we have printed materials, and we also had videos. So participants brought in new interpretations. They told us stories that we haven't even considered, and they exercise creative ownership. That is the most relevant thing for me, because they adapted the data to their local or thematic contexts. And also, we have faced some challenges. Some participants struggle with the complexity of the dataset and the methodology. I have received lots of emails regarding the methodology because it's kind of technical. And also, we received this wide variety of formats. So it is kind of difficult to evaluate in a uniform way because they are super different. How you compare an event with a video, with a printed data visualization is difficult. So we created a framework for that. And also, it was not easy to reach some of the data communities, the data visualization communities, because we wanted to be in different channels and get this challenge through different platforms. And it was kind of difficult because right now, data visualization communities are kind of overstretched and underfunded, but we have the amazing privilege to work with domestic data streamers. That is a local group from Barcelona that work with data and make some public events using the data in some creative and artistic ways. So we are very lucky to have them in the jury. And well, for concluding, with this process, we have learned that to build a culture of reuse beyond technical communities, we need to go beyond just publishing data. We must document with others in mind. Explanation is just as important as openness. And we need to design for interpretation because not everyone is a data expert. And we should connect with creative communities, support them, and learn their ways of seeing. And also, we should see the challenges not just as competitions, but as spaces of experimentation, exchange, and visibility. And also create opportunities to generate creative ownership of data. It's amazing when people adapt the data to their local thematic context in a creative way. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias, Maca. I'm sure there are some people in the audience who are familiar with the Global Data Barometer. They recently launched a second edition. But yeah, this data viz part is a new thing that is very exciting. We can't wait to see the rest of the submissions. Thank you. And so again, questions for later. But last but not least, our next presenter is Diogo Pereira Henriques, an independent consultant, researcher, and designer who will be discussing data reuse in multicultural cities, analyzing data created by social inclusion and civil rights NGOs, and foreseeing both expected and unexpected forms of open data migration and recycling. And can I please request someone whose mic is on to please mute their mic? I think Okay, I found you. Okay, I'm so sorry, but I will mute you. Okay, sorry, Diego, floor is yours. Thank you. If you are saying something, we might have to check your mic again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfecto, thank you.
Okay. My presentation is about open data and immigration. This is somehow a hot topic. We have seen what is happening in the US, for people in Europe, recent news in Spain, also in Murcia, where several challenges and even confrontations are happening with immigrants. Because I'm in the process of founding an NGO working on social inclusion, I'm going to present this overall study. So it's an ongoing study. And at the same time to raise awareness of this issue that somehow it seems to go backwards. For some time we thought we were developing in the right direction, but in some places it seems that we are going backwards. So for the start, last week was the Mandela Day. So I brought here just an excerpt of his speech when there was this meeting in Codesa just before he became president of South Africa, and where he says, no persons or groups of persons shall be subjected to oppression, domination, or discrimination by virtue of their race, gender, ethnic origin, color, or creed. Alongside other values, he would then be awarded a UNESCO Peace Prize in 1991, and then also the Nobel Peace Prize in 93, and continues to be a very influential person. So here in the picture you see a photo of a mural in Lisbon. So my presentation is going to present a short background, then previous work that I've done in multicultural communities, then the topic of open data migration, short discussion and conclusion, and then some references. So this is a painting of 16th century Lisbon, and it shows a multicultural city. So you can see here colored people in horses, people of all kinds of walks, and they are getting along together. So, of course, this is from an anonymous Flemish painter. This is a visualization, but somehow it shows that Lisbon has been for several centuries a hotspot of communities and of cultures. And of course, Portugal has been always a country of immigration. So here in the upper visualization, we see the destinations of Portuguese immigration from a book that I recently saw. I'll show it in the references. So there are Portuguese people all over the world. And there were cases where Portuguese people were also living in hardship conditions. So for example, here it's a photo of a bidonville. I don't know if some of you have heard in the 60s, where Portuguese communities were living in slums. In this sense, Portugal has been a country that has welcomed immigrants because it has also this immigrant experience. Everyone has an immigrant in the family, at least. In a recent public speech by the writer Lídia Jorge on the celebrations of the Day of Portugal and the Portuguese communities, she mentioned, also I'm saying an excerpt of her speech, that we have the blood of the native and the migrant, of the European and the African, of the white and the black, and all of the other human colors. We are descendants of the slave and the master who enslaved, children of the pirate and of the one who was robbed, a mixture of the one who punished to the point of punishment and the merciful one who cleaned their wounds. So that's Portugal and overall the world. We are a mixture of people. Of course, after her speech, there was fake news happening in social media, spread by far right, that now in Portugal has a lot of influence, trying to suggest that she said that Portuguese people were in a kind of extinction. And also the related news that criminality in Portugal is going to lower levels, but there is this perception that immigrants are really participating in criminality. But the reality of the data shows that we have less crime, just newspapers are publicizing it more. So I think this relation with fake news and open data can be an important one. If we have the data to see online, the sources, the real data, then we can somehow stop this widespread of fake news. I've done previous work on multicultural communities. So in Lisbon, this was an installation in a tram. For those who visited Lisbon, trams are very popular there. And we designed a world map in the tram where you could hear with headphones hanging from the ceiling music from all over the world. So showing that Lisbon had people from all over the world. And part of this exhibition was also to invite communities for the opening and for the outsourcing of these headphones and of the electronic parts that we use for the sound. So part of the budget that we received to do the exhibition was channeled to the immigrant communities that somehow had visibility, not only in the team, but also winning money with this. Another project that I participated was the Afro Futures in European Enclaves, that we won a fellowship of the Future Architecture Platform, co-funded by the Creative European Program. And we were the first project in several years of future architecture fellowships of highlighting the role of Afro-European communities and how they should be given more stage. And we were also published in the book that Future Architecture Platform published. So now my short introduction to the project that I'm developing on open data and immigration. So there is the component of the international level, somehow using has method, desk, and literature review to survey international frameworks and legislation that includes UN Sustainable Development Goals and the EU GDPR. For those that are outside of Europe, is the data protection law that has been implemented for many years, and also the most recent EU Artificial Intelligence AI Act that somehow tries to manage these new beasts that we are seeing in the world, that is the AI. At the city level, the case study of Lisbon, because I know it as a city very well. And it started as a survey of physical places where the communities work, use or socialize. And this can be public spaces, streets and squares, local businesses. Everyone knows the Chinese shop or the Indian shop, for example, where we bought the electronic devices to do the intervention in the tram, and also religious centers. In some communities, the religious centers like mosques or churches can be really important. So there was this mapping and also identifying organizations working with these communities. And some are governmental at national, city and neighborhood level, others are NGOs, and others have complex kinds of legal entities. This was done more on exploratory ethnography, so a lot of time spent in the streets, talking with people, knowing people, sometimes using several languages, and it has been a very interesting personal experience as well. The objective of bringing this international level study is that sometimes we can see that some things are not really happening as they should. So, for example, in this recent publication by Ondesa, it's the social think tank of United Nations, we can see that from the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, many of them are in regression. So instead of being developed into the positive outcomes that were expected in 2030, some of them are in moderate progress, some in marginal progress, and some are in really regression. And so, for example, one of the institutions that is really important in Lisbon is the Red Cross, the humanitarian network, who registers persons in need for support. And then these persons go to another institution here, an NGO that is called ReFood, is also an international organization, and distributes food for those registered. So there are some interesting interconnections between several organizations. So it's not only one that does something, there's a network of organizations. And these networks also can support the development of several sustainable goals. So for example, here, the Zero Hunger, the Sustainable Development Goal 2, and the Reduce Inequality are two of the ones that are really in regression. So these two institutions are in Lisbon working on trying to develop these objectives. So these interconnections of sustainable goals can be really important, and And I say, as a conclusion and discussion, at the international level, reduced inequalities, the Sustainable Development Goal 10, that is normally related with social inclusion, can interconnect with other Sustainable Development Goals, as we've seen: hunger, quality of life, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, sustainable cities and communities. That is my area. I'm an architect. And this can generate data reuse and data recycle for the development of Sustainable Development Goals. Here, thinking of open data. A second conclusion is that the GDPR protection and immigration, including human rights, need to be foreseen when using open data. So most of the NGOs working with social inclusion are really afraid of sharing data and having open data, because the data reuse, data migration, data recycle can allow disclosure of personal data theft and loss, and even other unexpected uses that can be bad for these vulnerable communities. And the recent developments of AI will add more complexity to these issues. So, for example, we saw in the US that ICE was gathering data from all kinds of sources to identify immigrants where they were. So sometimes we have good intentions when publishing a data set, but it can be used for other objectives. And then the EU artificial intelligence
inclusivity, diversity in the topics and our speakers. So yeah, thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? I will please share them in the chat. I am mindful of time. I know that everyone has, dedicated 1 hour of their day for this, and we thank you. The second thing that Diogo was talking about was the whole international community, which is this. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for taking the time. If you don't have any questions, I do have some. So I will go ahead, again, mindful of the time. What I love about today's meeting is that we can reimagine open data. And I love that I think each of our speakers just, are representing very niche fields of open data and that we haven't heard very much from, right? So Maca, you're doing data viz. Diogo, it's more CSO, and also visualization, actually some data visualization aspects, like exhibitions, etc. And Barbara, your journal, which is very interesting, by the way. You share the same birth. Was yours 15th anniversary?
10th anniversary.
10th, okay, 10th. Yeah, so we are also celebrating our 10th in that month. So happy birthday
Wonderful.
to both of our organizations. My question, and this goes to all, so given that many non-governmental actors are not always bound by the same ethical standards, I think all of you kind of talked about ethics and standards to a certain degree. What are some ways that you've seen practiced in your context that promote consistency in ethical data stewardship? I think, you've heard a lot about the usual open data and government frameworks and sides, but yeah, it would be interesting to hear how you apply. I think, Barbara, you mentioned you have your own policy, for example, at the journal. Yeah, please, whoever would like to take that first. Barbara, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a range of different policies that we have developed over time. So we ask authors to make sure they choose a recommended repository for depositing their data. I need a repository that really is sustainable, that offers persistent identifiers, that is sort of recognized in the field. And then we also have policies around peer reviewing, because we want to make sure that at least some basic requirements for the data are in place. So we don't do a full data peer review, but we we ask our reviewers to check that the data set is in place, the licensing is appropriate, and the data describes the paper describes the data set sort of accurately, and then we also have policies around sort of integrity, ethics, and making sure that the authors have the right to publish the data. We don't get into that sort of area of responsibility. It's on the authors, but we expect the authors to follow all the copyright restrictions. So we've had cases of authors that had to withhold some of the data and for anonymity reasons, but we were able to release the metadata, for example. There were cases of copyright restrictions that we could sort of address by, again, publishing a portion of the data. So we are in conversation with a community to revise these policies. For example, around AI, we've just started to look into this, but we expect a growing number of papers about data sets generated through AI. Happy to leave it to the others as well.
Maka or Diogo, if you have anything to add about your specific context and how you kind of navigate the question of ethics.
Maka, go ahead.
Okay, the thing is that we don't have an ethical policy formalized in a document about the challenge. That is the main field where I work in the GDB. So I don't know if I can respond accurately to this question, but yes, we respect the privacy and dignity of the people represented in the data. We avoid the use of AI because it's not kind of possible, like in the data visualization. So we are taking that into account. And we also use open and properly cited data. And I cannot mention like any other example because we don't have any document or like rules about ethical policy framework in this particular area of the GDB. So I'm so sorry, Kat.
No worries at all yet. Thank you. Still, I think, yeah, go on.
From my side is an ethical in the aspect of human rights, right? So in what aspects some of the open data that exists or that the data structures, for example, from Red Cross that are closed, can they be open in a certain way that promote interconnections between different organizations and enhancement of human rights, and what is the border where they can also expose vulnerable communities and put them at risk. And of course, when we speak of humans using these data sets, it's a kind of ethics. Now with algorithms and AI using these data sets, it's another kind of ethics completely. And I think the European Union AI Act not mentioning open data in any part is really a missed opportunity. And I think there can be work to try to see how this gap could be done in for good. But human rights have centuries old or millennia old history. Ethics of data in the digital world is a new field, and everyone is trying to learn from it as we go.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think in the interest of time, it's 3 p.m. I'm going to wrap up, but this is so interesting that I do feel like a blog or something that we could continue on. There's just so much, and thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to everyone who took the time today. Do I have announcements? I do. Just that reminders that we will not have a meeting next month. We usually have a break in August annually. So no meeting next month, but please take a look at September onwards for other speaking opportunities. Anyone here, so we're speaking specifically on gender inequality and the climate crisis, using data to anticipate and mitigate its impact on vulnerable populations. So if that kind of rings any bells to anyone, inspires you to speak, please let us know. You know where to find us. And yeah, with that said, thank you so much and have a good day to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to all our speakers,
Bye.
to everyone who joined us, usual faces, new faces. Bye. Thank you, Barbara.
Please import your